So here is my my Netris dashboard right here. Mine might look just a little bit different from yours because I do have access to a couple of extra things since I work in the MLS department. But the reason that I'm taking you here to this page is we do have a link to Instanet right here. It's this little box here that's got a wolf howling at the moon. That one will take you to Instanet. So that's one way that you can log in there. But I will show you one more way that you can do that as well. If you click on Netris Matrix, or our MLS system right here, if you click on that one and you're in here and you're working in Matrix, you can also get to Instanet right here, Instanet Transaction Desk. It'll be under your external links. All of these are different shortcuts and links to different products that you have available to you. And Instanet is right here, kind of towards the bottom of that first section. So if I click on that one, it'll open up Instanet for me. And sometimes it takes my page just a second to load. There it goes. Okay, and here is my Instanet. Now, what I'm going to do before we get into all of the meat and potatoes of today's class is I'm actually going to kind of take a step back and I'm going to go back to the MLS system. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a property. And the reason that I'm doing that is I want to show you a couple of things that you can do with Instanet while you're still in the MLS system. So to do that, I'm just going to pull up a residential search here. And to make it easy, I'm just going to search for 10 million plus homes. There we go. We have 31. It usually narrows it down pretty small for me. So here's all the different homes that match that. And I'm just going to pick a random one here. Okay, here's one. Here's a $14 million home. And the reason why I take you here first is to point out a couple of things with Instanet right away. The first one is this little icon right here. I think it looks like 3 sheets of paper kind of stacked on top of each other. And this one, you'll see it says Transaction Desk View Documents. So no matter what you use, if you're more of a zip forms person, if you're more of an Instanet person, either way, this is how agents are going to add documents to their listings. So even if you never use Instanet, you will kind of use it in a way whenever you're adding documents to your listings. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that to open it up. There we go. And so you'll see these are going to be all of the documents that are attached to this listing. Usually we see things like this, like a seller's disclosure notice, the survey, on-site sewer facility, things like that. It's all pretty normal. But you will see that it says Transaction Desk Edition up here at the top. So it is Instanet that we use to attach all these documents. And I did want to point out to you guys one thing, if you didn't know, is that there's these little stars at the end of each document down here. And when I kind of scroll my mouse over them, they say MLS Agent View, right? Now, if I click on those, you'll see that we have 3 different options for our documents. We can either set those to private, so nobody else will be able to see them. They're more just there for your own use, your own kind of reminder. We have the green star here, which is MLS Agent View. So that means that other agents will be able to see those documents. And then our last one is the blue star, which is a public document. So that means other agents will be able to see it, but also the public will be able to see that. So any clients that get emailed listings, they can view them. I believe they send out to these syndicates websites as well. Some of them will take those documents, some of them don't. But that just means pretty much anybody can see those. So that's just one other little tip right there. Okay, so that is right over here, those 3 little sheets of paper that says View Documents. Now, another thing that I want to point out to you guys is that there is this link right here. I think it looks like a little green sunburst or maybe a green mohawk, I don't know. But it says Transaction Desk Start a Transaction. So just another tip here, if you're in the MLS and you're looking at a listing, you can start a transaction right here from the MLS. all you have to do is find this little transaction desk link and it will start one. So that's actually what I'm going to do today to start our class. I'm going to click on transaction desk and it's going to go ahead and start me a transaction. And so you'll see that it opened up a new tab and it's opening up Instanet for me. There we go. Okay, and so it takes me to this little box here in Instanet and it says create transaction at the top. And then it's asking me for a couple of things. So the first one here is a name, and it automatically uses the property address as the name, which I like, so I'm going to keep that. Then I have an option to add a template, and we are going to create some templates for you and for your office a little bit later in our class today. But I just wanted to point out, whenever you're starting a new transaction, you can add a template. And in those templates, you can have any forms or documents that you want to go into your transactions. And that'll be if you have any. If you don't have any templates created, you might not see that template section there. And that's completely normal. Then we have type. So that is just what type of transaction are we working with. So this is a drop-down menu with a bunch of different options. And we're just going to say for today's class that we're doing a residential sale. Okay. Next one is import data, optional. So I don't have to do this, but it is super nice and it saves me a bunch of time. So I am importing that data from Netris, and then it has the MLS number below. So basically it is going to pull over all of the listing information from this MLS number. But one thing that you might not know is that you can also pull information from realist tax. So for example, right now we are doing a residential sale transaction, kind of like we're working with a buyer and we are going to submit an offer. But if you were doing the opposite, let's say you're on the listing side and you want to kind of fill out your transaction with some information, you can use import data from realist tax, and then it's going to fill in that transaction with as much tax information as it can. So it does kind of work on both ends of that transaction side. Then it has add me as the, and it automatically put selling agent since I said that this was a residential sale, but I can change this if I need to. So if I'm the listing agent, I can change that. If I'm going to be functioning as both, maybe I'm working on both sides, I can do that. But for today, I'm just going to leave it as selling agent. And then the very last thing at the bottom down here is this little checkbox with use wizard. And I do like to advise agents and brokers to keep that little checkbox checked and to use it. Because what it does is it just kind of walks you through setting up that transaction. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click create. And it is going to create this transaction for me. And it's going to pull all that information over from the MLS listing. So it's going to save us a bunch of time. And you'll see it's pulling everything over. It takes it just a second. There we go. Okay. So right off the bat, we can see there's a little photo at the top. That's the photo from that MLS listing. It's got the address. It's got the listing number. It's got my name. It's got the seller in here as well. And so since we're using that wizard, you'll see that it says wizard right here. The way that works is there are 5 steps, and it's just going to walk me through setting everything up. So step 1 is the details. Give me all the deets. What is going on with this transaction? So it put in the address here, since that pulled over from MLS. It pulled over the MLS number, the year built, school district, tax ID number. All of this information is pulled over into my transaction for me, so I don't have to do it, which is pretty fabulous. Scrolling down a little bit further, we get to listing information, and it put the list price in there for me as well. So that is really nice that it filled that in. Okay, so all that stuff is in there. That looks pretty good to me. So I'm just going to follow the little prompts here and go to the next one. Okay, and when I hit next, it takes me to step 2 out of 5, which is transaction dates. And on this one, we can see it brought over the list date from the listing, so that is awesome. And then it also has options here for other transaction dates. So I can enter in the offer date. So for example, if I am going to fill out an offer today with my buyer, maybe I want to go ahead and say that our offer date is going to be today. And it also has these nifty little calendars here, so I can just pick that out. We also have things like the acceptance date. So when was that offer accepted? Closing date, funding date, possession, all of that kind of stuff I can keep track of right here at Instanet. And so I really like that because then I don't have to have information in a bunch of different places. I can just keep everything about this property, this transaction in one spot. So that's step 2. So let's pop over to step 3. So I'm just going to click on next, takes me over to step 3. Step 3 is contacts. So who is involved in this transaction? So we can see that the listing broker was pulled over from MLS, so that's awesome. The listing agent was also pulled over from MLS, so it did that for me. That's great. The selling broker, that is my office. So mine says Metro Tex Association of Realtors. Pulled that over for me. It also added me as the selling agent automatically because it said add me as the, and I made sure to put selling agent. So I've got myself in there. And then it also has the seller here. Now it just says Scott. And so that is telling me that whenever the listing agent entered the listing, they put Scott as the seller. Usually agents will put just the last name or something like that whenever they are filling out their listing. But a really easy trick for that is I can go back to that matrix tab, back to the listing that I was looking at, and I can click on tax right here. And when I do that, it should show me, look at that, the owner name just says Scott. How funny. Usually it'll have a first and last name in there. Okay, well, that's fine. Then we'll just keep it as Scott. But if it had a first and a last name, or maybe it's like a husband and wife that owns a property, you can go in there and add multiple sellers, or you can change this around. To do that, you can go over here to this little menu icon. We kind of call it the street light icon because it looks like a little street light there. But this will give you the option to edit that name or to delete that one if you want to. So this looks all pretty good, but we are missing somebody. We're missing our buyer. So I'm going to go ahead and add that buyer in. And I do that by clicking this little plus sign and clicking add contact. Okay. I have a few options here. I could add a new transaction contact, so that would be somebody brand new that I'm working with. I can add an existing contact. So I do have the option to save one of my contacts here in Instanet. And so if I know that I'm going to be working with maybe an investor and we're going to be doing multiple transactions, I can save their information so that I don't have to be entering it in all the time. So that is a nice little tool as well. Add yourself is here, but obviously I'm already added, so we don't need to do that. And then we also have add contact from Google. So this will link your Google contacts to your Instanet so that you can pull it over from there as well. So I'm just going to do the first one, create a new transaction contact. And it brings me to this page where I can enter all the information. So first it wants to know what type of contact is this? And so there's a big, long list here of everybody that I could be working with. So I'm working with a buyer today, so that's what I'm going to pick. But we also have sellers in here, lawyers, agents, mortgage companies, all kinds of things here. So I'm just going to say buyer, and then I'm going to fill out their information. So I'm going to say that my buyer today is going to be Ghost Wallace. Ghost is the name of my big fluffy puppy, and he is currently passed out at my feet with all 4 paws in the air. So he's going to be our little pretend buyer for today. I'll put in his email address and his legal name. And you might be wondering, why go to the steps of putting in the legal name and the preferred signature and the preferred initials? Why go through all that? Well, it just kind of saves me time later on down the line, because if I send something out to be signed by Ghost, he'll have to enter in his initials and his signature and his legal name. So this is just saving us some time. So there's everything about my my contact, my buyer that I'm entering in. Right down here, this little checkbox, add to address book, that would be me saving this contact here in Instanet. So kind of like what I talked about earlier, if I'm working with either an investor or a client that I know we're going to be doing multiple transactions with, I only have to enter this one time, make sure I check that little box, and then I don't have to do it every time. So that's really nice. So that's just your general info. There is another little tab here for address. So if I want to add in my contact's address, I can do that as well. I'm just going to keep it easy. We're just going to stick with all the general info today. So I'll click save, and then we'll see that right down here, there is our buyer. Oh, look at that. I spelled his last name wrong. I'll go in and edit it. Let's see. Where did I misspell it? There it is. Forgot an A. Okay. There we go. Now it's spelled right. So editing it is that easy. Very, very simple. And that's step 3. So let's keep on going. I'm just going to click next and go to the next step. Next step is number 4, which is forms. So what forms do we need to get signed and filled out for this transaction? So I'm going to go ahead and add a few. I'm going to add just some basic forms that we generally will need with a transaction like this. So I click add. Here's all my forms libraries that I have access to. And I like to use the search box up here to pull things up quickly. So for example, I might need an IABS. Let me see. You know what? I think I have to spell it out. Information about brokerage services. Here we go. Let's see. There we go. Information about brokerage services. And we're going to want to pick the one that says selling side. So I'm going to click on that one. And it adds it to my little basket. So I can go ahead and add that one right now, or I can add multiple forms into my basket and then add them all at once. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so we've got our information about brokerage services. Let's see, we're probably going to need a 1 to 4 family contract. So I'm going to type in 1 to 4. Here we go. So I've got 2 versions of this form. I have the Trek version and the Texas Realtors version. Doesn't really matter which one I choose. Both of those are going to be the exact same form. So I'll just pick the top one. Now I've got my 2 forms in there. And then I'm also going to add my third-party financing because this is a $14 million home. So Ghost is going to need some financing. Again, we've got a Trek version of that form and a Texas Realtors version. Doesn't really matter which one we choose because they're both going to be the same. So now I've got all 3 of my forms here. So I'm going to click add. And there we go. We've got all 3 of our forms in there and ready to go. Now I know that it's very tempting to go in and start working on those forms, but we're actually going to go to the last step because see, we're only on step 4 out of 5. So we do want to make sure that we finish all of our steps. So I'm going to click next. And here we go. We are on step 5. And our last step here is documents. So this is any of those documents that we saw earlier on our listing. So these are things like our seller's disclosure notice. We've got a survey here. This is information about that on-site sewer facility. So all of this came from the listing. The only one that didn't is this top one. And this top one says fax back cover sheet. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that to open it. There we go. And so our fax back cover sheet, this one is going to be a fully functioning faxing system out of Instanet. And so this one you can send over and they can send this one through their fax machine and fax directly into this transaction. So that's a nice little tool. I know a lot of us don't use fax anymore, so a little bit of an older technology, but it is still here for you if you want to use it. Okay, so that's step 5. That is everything. So we're going to go ahead and click done. And here we go. Okay, so our transaction is all built out. If you and your all of your realtors, all of your agents in your office use that little wizard, it really does make things a lot easier to build out the whole transaction and make sure that you're not skipping any steps. So I really do like that feature. Now that's all some, kind of some basic stuff. That's what the agents can do. But let's go take a look at some of those more broker-focused functions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over to our documents. And the way that I like to do that, there is this little menu over here on the right-hand side. If you don't see it, you might have to click on these 3 little green lines. You'll see that that will minimize or maximize that right-hand menu. We kind of call that the hamburger icon because it looks like a very simple version of a hamburger, I guess. And I'm going to click on Documents over here. There we go. Okay, so here is all of your documents. So we see all of those ones that we just saw. And one thing that I want to point out to you guys is that there is this button right here, a Submit button. So this is something that your agents can use to submit their documents to you for review. So maybe they're working on something, maybe they've got that seller's disclosure notice and they need that to be signed by their buyer. And they've gone through and they've done a couple of things to it. Then they can click Submit and it will ask, do you want to send this document for review? And they'll say, yeah, I do. Okay. And so it is submitted. So what that is doing is it is submitting that document to either the broker, the office manager, whoever has that sort of access in Instanet, and they'll be able to go in and review this document. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to submit a couple of these just so that we'll have something to work with here in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and submit those 3. You can see I can tell that it's been submitted because it has this little I think it looks like a little watch, a little icon there, and it says submitted. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we're actually going to kind of get out of this transaction and we're going to go take a look at kind of the broker view of things. So for that, we're going to switch over to the other side. So this little hamburger icon over here on the left. And this menu on the left-hand side, this is going to be your menu for all of Instanet. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the very top one, which is Dashboard. We're going to go here. Okay, and so this dashboard here is kind of a landing page for everything that you have going on in Instanet. So I'm currently on the broker dashboard. But what I can do is I can click this little mannequin head here, and you'll see that it says Switch to Agent View. So let me click on that to show you what that looks like. So now I've switched over to the agent dashboard, and it will tell me that right here. So as the broker or as someone with that access here in Instanet, you can switch in between an agent view, which will be just your transactions, only the things that you have going on in Instanet. And then you can go over here to your little mannequin head, you can click on it, and that will switch you over to your broker view. And the broker view is going to allow you to see everything going on for your whole office. So I can see different transactions that I have done here. I can also see my agents and I can impersonate those agents. I can see all of my tasks for the office. So I can see, oh, here are some transactions that are past the closing date. And there's some for other agents in my office here. Okay. So this is your this is your broker dashboard. And one thing about this one is that there's a little lock up here at the very top. And if I click on that lock, you'll see that it unlocks my dashboard. And so what that is doing is it's giving me the option to customize this page. So for example, maybe I don't really care about impersonating agents. That's not something that I need to be doing a whole lot. I can move that around. I can move it more towards the bottom so it's kind of out of the way. Maybe it's more important to me to see those past closing date transactions. I can also get rid of it. So if I click that little X right here, you'll see what it did is it got rid of it down here and it just kind of pinned it to this little area up top. And so these are all different options that you have for different things that you can see here in Instanet. So there's things like transactions that are closing in the next 7 days. You might want to keep an eye on those. We also have past closing date, transactions by office. That's another one. Office tasks. So is there any tasks or to-dos that are in your office that need to get done? So there's all kinds of different things in here that you can do. And all you have to do is click and drag it down. And then it'll add it to my broker dashboard. I can move these around. I can get this looking exactly how I like it. Maybe I want all these guys up top that are little. So you can really customize this how you want it. I can also resize them. So there's this little green triangle in the bottom of all of them. So I can really customize this however I want to. So I really like that about Instanet, is that this is really whatever you want to make it. Okay? So move things around on that broker dashboard, especially as you're using Instanet more and more. You'll kind of come to realize which things you are using all the time and which ones you are never using. So you can just X those out and remove them, and then you don't have to see them. Okay, so once I've got this looking how I like it, I'm going to go ahead and click my little lock again. And that is just going to hide away all those little widgets, all those little boxes that I'm not using. And then I can see my broker dashboard as it is. Okay. So that's one little tip for you about your broker dashboard. So now one thing that we're going to do is we are going to go to our little menu over here on the left, and we are going to go turn on some broker settings. This is very important for kind of the rest of our class and making sure that we have the ability to do all the things that we need to. So for that, again, we're going to click on our little hamburger icon. We're going to open up our left-hand menu, and we're going to go down to this one with the little gears that says settings. Go down to settings. Okay, so here is all of your settings. And the one that we want to look at right now is program settings. It should be the second one from the top. So I'm going to open up program settings. Okay, here we go. So in here, this is going to be a bunch of different settings that you have available to you where you can change different things, move things around, get it how you like it. Let's see, where is the one we want? Okay, and the one that we want is kind of towards the bottom. It's broker file review. Remember, just a moment ago, we were, as the agent, submitting a document for review. So now I want to go to broker file review, and I want to make sure that that's turned on for me so that I can do that. Okay, so it says review option. Right now, it's on turn off my review functionality. But I'm going to go ahead and say activate me as a closing broker review, or I'm sorry, as a broker reviewer. But there is also an option for a closing reviewer, a listing reviewer, and a staff reviewer. So if you've got some office managers or some office staff that help out with Instanet, you do have a few different options in here. But I'm going to do the last one, activate me as a broker reviewer. And then there's also this little checkbox right here, which is for send document review notifications. So this way, if I check that little box, anytime that one of my agents submits a document to be reviewed, I'll know about it. So that way, it's not like they're clicking submit and then it's just out there in limbo hanging out. I'll get an email right away, and then I know, oh, okay, Jane Doe submitted a document. I need to go check that out and help them out so they can go ahead and submit that contract. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click update, and it'll tell me right down here that my settings have been updated, so I'm good to go. Okay. All right, so now that we've got that setting turned on and we're all ready to go, I'm going to open up my left-hand menu again, clicking on my little hamburger icon. And now we're going to go to Broker Tools. Broker Tools right here. Okay, so here's all of our broker tools. And agents will not see this. This is only going to be available to your brokers or to other super users in your office. If you're like, what in the world is a super user? That is the name for anyone who has office manager access, broker access, something like that. So these are only broker functions. So here under your broker tools, we're going to click on the very first one, which says review documents, because that's what we've been working on, is reviewing those docs. So let me click on that one. Okay. And what we can see here is that we have a couple of transactions that do have some documents submitted for review. So I can see that both of these have 3 documents. That's what that little 3 there is for. Both of them have 3 documents that I need to go in and I need to review something. They want me to take a look at that. So what you can do is you can click on the name of that transaction, and it's going to show you all 3 of those documents that need review. And then what you can do is you can have your little menu over here, your little streetlight menu, and you can go to review document. Okay, so we can do that. Or another option that you have is there is a quick review button right up here. So if you're like, you know what, I only have a couple of these, I'm just going to go ahead and do them all, I can click quick review. Both of them will kind of show you the same thing. So what it's done here is it's taken me to my first transaction that has something that I need to review. So we've got our first transaction, and then we have 3 documents here that need review. So here's my first one. We've got it highlighted in green. And then the document is going to be over here. And I can scroll through this. And I can view everything about that document. I can look at all the signatures, how it's filled out, all that kind of good stuff over here. If I think this looks good, I can come over to my little icons here, and I have 3 options. The first one would be a note. The second one is a thumbs up for accepting it, saying, yep, this one is good to go. And then the third one is a thumbs down or a reject. So this is saying, no, this one is not good to go. We have something that needs to be done on this. So I'm going to do accept on this first one. And here we go. So we're going to accept it. And I do have the option to add a note on that. So I can just add a note right here. I can say, this looks good. And then I can send that one out. I also have the option to add to canned notes. You might be wondering what that is. Well, your canned notes are right up here. And this would be just kind of some default responses. So things like, great job, this is approved to send. That might be something that you're using all the time. Instead of typing it out each time, you can save it as a canned note. Or another one might be, hey, this is missing signatures or initials, please revise. That could be one for a reject. So that's the nice thing about your canned notes, is that it saves it for you. And then you also have the option to add another note if you want to say multiple different things. So I'm good with this. I'm going to go ahead and click save. Okay, so we can see this one now says it's fully approved. We can see that we've got our little note on it, so that one's good. So let's click on the second one. Here's the second one. This is a square footage disclosure, and we can scroll through this document. And if I thought that there was something missing, I could maybe do a thumbs down for a reject. And it's going to pop up that same little box here to add a note. Now, if you don't want to add a note, you can always just click save, and then it'll go, it'll just add your little reject there. But I'm going to go ahead and do a canned note this time. I'm going to use maybe missing signatures or initials, please revise. Adds my note, and I can click save right there. There we go. So now I've got one that's approved, one that's rejected, and we can see our notes on either one of those. We'll go into a third one. Here is a survey. That looks good, so I'm just going to do a thumbs up with no note. So that's what it looks like when you don't add a note. Still says approved. There's just no little note in my bubble there. Okay, so that is everything here. So now what I can do is I can use my previous or my next buttons at the top. And when I click on that next button, what it's going to do is it's going to take me to my next transaction. So we can see that the address at the top has changed. Now we're looking at a different transaction, and this transaction still has a few documents that we need to approve. Approve, deny, look at, whatever. So again, you click on those. Over here on the right, we can scroll through this and we can check everything. And then we can say, yep, that looks good. Maybe great job. This is approved to send. Save it. You know, it can go really, really fast once you've gotten used to it. I'm going to reject one just because, why not? Oh, this one is required, so I do have to enter a note. Maybe we'll say a date is missing, and then this one's good. So there we go. Okay, so there we go. We've reviewed all of our documents. So I'm going to click close up here at the very top. It is that easy. It's not too bad. You just click on quick review right there. We can also see at the very top, new documents have been submitted for review. Click here to refresh that screen. So I can do that and I can see any new documents that have been submitted. Okay, so that is how we can go in and review those documents that we've seen. So now what I want to do is I want to switch back to the agent view. Now that we've gone in here as the broker, we've approved some things, we've added some notes, and I want to take a look at that from the agent view so that you can see what your agents will see. So for that, I'm going to click on my hamburger icon. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to agent view. Because I am lucky. Here in Instanet, I'm both an agent and a broker. They give me all the access. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is as the agent, I'm going to go back to my transactions. And let's say that we pull up that transaction that we just did. So maybe this very first one, okay? So that's the one that we just pulled up today. And we can see here that we have one that's been rejected and two that have been fully approved. So now I can go into that transaction and I can navigate to my documents with my menu here on the right. And here we go. Now I see all of my documents. I can see that this one was approved. Fabulous, love that. I can see that this one is rejected and there's a little 1 next to it. So I know that there is a note on that. So I can click on that. And there we go. It tells me, oh, there's at least one date missing. Oh, okay. So I know that I need to go in and take care of that. So I can click on that and I can add it to my basket. And here's an option to remove it if I want to, if I've now fixed that. And then I can also resubmit right here. So maybe I look at this and I say, okay, there's one date missing. Okay, so I open up my document and I go in here and I add in my date and I do whatever I need to do. And then I can go back and I can resubmit. Okay, so that's one thing we can do. We can also go to our approved here. There's my little thumbs up and it's got that 1 on it. And I can click on that and I can see, great job, this is approved to send. Awesome, so that one is good to go. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of what all you can see here as the agent and what that looks like for them. Okay, and I really like this. I like that everything is all kept in one place in Transaction Desk. I'm not getting notified somewhere else. I'm not having to, you know, send them an email or something like that. It's kind of all in one place. And the really great thing is that this is all paperless. You know, I haven't printed anything out, haven't killed any trees. So that is really awesome as well. Okay, so that's just one of the first things that we can do in here. That is our broker review. But now I want to go back and just take a look at a couple more settings that we have for the office. So for that one, again, I'm going to open up my little menu here by clicking on my hamburger icon. And then I'm going to go down to my settings. And under settings, this time I am going to click on the very first one, which is preferences. Preferences. There we go. And just to take a look at a couple things here. So the first one that we have is user information. So this is going to be all of the information that you gave to us whenever you signed up with MetroTex. So here is all of your agent information, like your name. We should also have your license number, phone numbers, email, all those things are in here, and it all feeds over from our member records. Okay. The next section that we have is the office information. This one also feeds over from our member records, but if you are looking through there and you see, oh, you know what, this address is incorrect, you can always reach out to us, reach out to our member services team, or you can call MLS, we can get you to the right place, and we can get that corrected. Now, one thing to note, if there's anything incorrect on the office information side, we do need the broker or an office manager to request that change. Because if we change something for the office, it's going to affect all of the agents in that office. So we do need either a broker or an office manager to go in and request any changes like that. Okay, so that's your office information. Then we have email signature. And email signature, this is a manual input. So you will want to come in here and type in your information. I just typed in a couple of basic things here. My name, Rachel Hinson, my title, MLS instructor, MetroTex Association of Realtors, that's the name of my office. Here's my phone number, and there is my email address right there. So always good to go in and just fill that out, take a couple of minutes. I would also encourage your agents to do the same. Doesn't take a lot of time, but always good to have that info available. Just make sure to click update if you change anything there. Okay, then we have a section for branding. And branding, this is where we can add a fax back cover sheet and email banner. That's this very first one right here. I have put in a MetroTex Association of Realtors logo there. Then we have an option for a personal photo. So generally this will be a photo of you or your agents or whatever they want to add there. And then we have a company logo. And so these are real simple. You can just click on them if you want to change them. And then it pops up my computer files, and I can go to my pictures and I can find where that photo lives, and I can click on it and add that one in. So not too bad, but just something to take note of, that there is some branding options in here. And maybe you want your whole office to use the same company logo, or maybe you've changed your branding recently and you want to make sure that everyone has the most updated information. This can be good to come in here and just double check. So that is your branding. And then we also have a section down here at the bottom for login information. Now, thankfully, Instanet is part of our single sign-on program, so you don't have to worry a whole lot about this tab. I just clicked on Instanet and it took me straight in without needing a username or password. And that's the way I like it, because Lord knows I have so many usernames and so many passwords that I forget them. So there you go. There is your login info. If you ever do need to change it, you can come in here. But I like using that single sign-in from Matrix. So that's all of your preferences. Always good to come in here and just, double check that everything is taken care of. So going back to our settings, so I'm just going to click on settings again. I also want to take a further look at our program settings too, because there's some more things that we can change in here. So I'm going to click on program settings. Okay. And here in program settings, the first one that we have is transaction settings. So this is about what kind of transactions I want to see. So do I want to view all of them, or do I just want to see mine? Do I just want to see shared transactions? Because you can share them here. So that is one thing that you can modify. This is also going to be a section where you can denote how you like things to be sorted. So I like the last modified descending. So basically that one is showing you what is the last thing that's been touched, the last thing that's been edited. But maybe you would rather see things ordered by name, date created, Maybe listing date or closing date is something that you want to see at the top. So you can really sort out your transactions and how you want to see them in here. But I do like the last modified descending, because that's really what's had an edit, what's had, something touched or changed on it. Okay. Default status. I can click here and I can set a default status for my transactions. Now, I know that some of these do look really similar to our statuses in Matrix, but these are actually just for your transactions here in Instanet. So I could say, okay, well, whenever my agents create transactions, I want them to default to being active transactions. Or let's see, open, that might be another way that you want to say that. But we've got pending, withdrawn, and closed file complete in here as well. So we've got quite a few different options in there. So again, that's just another default you can change. Then we have default display. So we've got a list or a grid. Sometimes people have different preferences about that. List would just be in a one-liner list. And then your grid would be in a grid pattern. Usually they look like little cards. So I like the list, so I'm going to stick with that one. Create cover sheet. So do you want that fact spec cover sheet created in every single transaction, or do you know that you're never going to use that? Maybe you uncheck that to get rid of it because it's just crowding things up in your documents. You can do that. Use the wizard. So do you want this one to be automatically checked every single time? Then go ahead and leave that in there. But if you know that you don't need to use that, you can always uncheck that default as well. I like to keep those guys checked just in case though. Okay, and then we've got enable PDF data import. And you might be wondering what in the world that is. And I think Instanet knows that because they added a little "what's this" button right here. And so if you click on that, it'll open up this little box to tell you about that. Basically, the long and short of this is if you have a PDF that has data on it, so it has an address, it has a listing date, all of those kind of things, the import PDF data is going to give you the option to automatically pull those contract details off of your PDF and put that into your transaction. So that's just a little option that you can use. You can either check or uncheck that one as well. So I'll click update. So there's your program setting, or sorry, that one is your transaction settings. Your document settings, these are going to be very similar. We also have an option for your default view and your default sort. So those are just how you are viewing things and how they are sorted. Okay, you're going to see the same thing with a lot of these. With your checklist settings, it gives you the same options. With your form settings, we're going to get a couple of the other same options in here. Now in form settings, we do have one, and I was asked this question recently, and I thought it was a really good one. They wanted the default color for their transactions to be blue. They really liked having blue for anything that they write on those forms. So writing in your list price or your offer price, writing in your buyer and seller names, writing in exclusions, all of those kind of things. They felt that the blue color helped it to stand out a little bit more than using black. So if you want to, you can change the colors to all kinds of crazy things. However, I would say to stick with either black or blue, but you can change that in there. Okay. You can also change your font. There's a few different fonts in here. Most of them are going to be fairly professional looking fonts. There's not any weird guys in here. And then you can also change your default size. So how big is that text as well? So those are some really good things in here to kind of take a look at as well. Okay, so that's your form settings. Make sure to click update if you change anything. For your fact settings, these will be things like if you want to enable or disable timestamping of those. And then it's got the numbers for those fact systems with Instanet. Okay. Let's see, task settings. These are going to be things like your default status and your default sort will be here. But there's also an option for reminders. So if you create tasks in Instanet, do you want to be reminded about those? You can come over here and say, yeah, I want to receive a reminder about that. Okay, so just a couple of different settings in there. Let's see, email settings, I believe, is the same. Let's see here. Default attachment type, yes. So send as a link. This is one that I get asked about from time to time. Whenever you send out signings and things like that, Instanet always sends it out as a link. It doesn't send it out as an attachment, but you do have the option to change that in here if you want to. But I like to stick to sending it as a link. Just makes it a little bit easier. Just a few more here. Then we've got Authentisign settings. So this is sending things out for e-signatures. Again, you've got that default sort option right here. And then we've got transaction documents. So this would be whenever I send things out to be signed, they are going to automatically come back to my documents in a new folder. But if I want to, I can either have them go to a new folder or in the root folder. So root folder would just be they come into my documents folder versus new folder would be it creates a new little folder just for your signed documents. Okay, so that's your Authentisign settings. We've got a couple more here. We've already touched on our broker file review and then our markup settings here. This would just be a font and a font size as well. So that is all the program settings, quite a few, but I do like to touch on them in this class so that at least you guys know all of the different things that you can come in here and you can change for yourself and for your office. Okay, well, it looks like we are about halfway through our class. Yeah, I've got 3 o'clock on my watch. So what I'm going to do is take a quick 5-minute break so you guys can get up, stretch, grab some coffee, grab some water, whatever you'd like to do. And then we'll jump back into the second half of our class. Alrighty, well, I've got 3:06, so I'm going to go ahead and close out our poll, and then we're going to get back into the second half of class. Let's see, so are you currently using Instanet Transaction Desk for your office review? So I'll go ahead and close that guy out and we'll take a look. Okay, so it looks like 100% said no. Gotcha. Well, hopefully you guys can learn a little bit more about that tool and then you can use it for your office if that's something that you're interested in. Okay, so before we left, we were still in our settings, our little 3 gears over here, and we took a look at some of our program settings. So now what we're going to do is we're going to check out some more of those broker-specific tools. So for that, I'm going to open up my little hamburger icon and I'm going to go to my broker tools and let's take a look. Okay, so we've got review documents at the top. This is what we just looked at earlier. This is how to review your agent's submitted documents. Then our next one is transaction transfer. So Instanet Transaction Desk follows the TREC rules for when it comes to transactions. So what does that mean? That means that whenever an agent transfers to a different office, a different brokerage, their transactions don't automatically follow them to the new office. They're going to stay with the previous broker and they're going to be reassigned to someone else in the office. Okay? So usually what happens with that, we have an agent, they go to a different office, all of their transactions stay with their old brokerage and they're reassigned to a super user in the office. So either a broker, an office manager, someone like that. And this transaction transfer section is where you can view those. So if I go in here and I take a look, we've got 3 of them for a few different agents in my office. You know what, Maggie's in our office, or Maggie's in our class today, so we're going to use her as our little guinea pig. So this is a this right here is a transaction from Maggie. And this is one where another agent has left the office, and so we can transfer this transaction. So you go into transaction transfer, you'll click your little bubble next to the transaction that you want to transfer. And then you've got your, you've got your basket right here. And in your basket, this is where I have options. So I can have it transferred to me as the broker if I want to keep that transaction. I can transfer to the previous agent. So this would be that agent that left my office. If I don't care and they can have all their own transactions back, I don't mind. I can go in here and transfer them right back to that agent, or I can transfer them to another agent. So maybe I know that we have one transaction that's still open. Maybe it is an active listing. Maybe it's one that we're waiting on it to close, whatever it might be. I can come in here and say, okay, well, we need to transfer that one to somebody else who knows what's going on. So I can pick the office, and then I can pick out whatever agent I want that to go to. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea. So let's do, you know what, I will go in here and I will say, let's transfer this one to Edith. Edith is another one of our instructors here. So I'll go ahead and transfer that one over to Edith. And I'll click transfer, and it is going to ask me, it says, are you sure that you want to transfer these transactions over to Edith? And I'll say, yes, I do. There we go. Now that transaction is gone, and we just have a couple more. So that's how transaction transfer works. It's not too much, sometimes it seems a little bit daunting, but really it's just click in that bubble and click in your basket to see what you want to do with that. So that's your transaction transfer, and that's under Broker Tools. The next one that we have below that is going to be your office transactions. So let's open that guy up. Okay, so office transactions. This is going to house all of the transactions for all of the agents in your office. So you get to see absolutely everything that's going on. And you can review them from here as well. So for example, I can see this is the transaction we just created today. I can see that there are, that I rejected one document and that I fully approved 2 more. And then I also have the option to review right here. There's a little button for me. So that's really nice that I have that right there. But I can also see other ones that aren't just mine. So for example, here's one right here that is Maggie's transaction. Here is a transaction by Edith. Okay, so there's one. Let's see, here's one by Rhonda. She also works at our MLS department. So I can see everybody's transactions that they have going on. I can review things. And I also have the option in here to go in and view everything. So I can view the agent's transaction dashboard, their details, contacts, documents, checklists, absolutely everything. So I have all those options right here from my office transactions. Okay, going back to my broker tools, that was office transactions. The next one is office tasks. So I'm going to click on that. So this would be all of the tasks that my agents have on their transactions. So for example, I can see I have one here, and this one is by Rachel, and she has take the earnest money to the title company, and that one is due. Maybe schedule an inspection. That's a task that somebody needs to do, that Shannon needs to do. We've got an inspection on this one by Edith as well. So you guys can see that this is all of the different tasks that all of my agents have going on, and I can really keep an eye on those. Now that's only if my agents use those tasks, if they use that kind of checklist or to-do list here in Instanet. But that is a really great way to just kind of keep everything in one place and make sure that you're not skipping any steps. So that's your tasks, your office tasks right here. Okay, the next one is agents. And when I click on agents, this is going to be all of the agents in your office. Now, if you have a larger office, you also have the option right here, a little drop-down menu that will give you the option to switch between different branch offices. So I know some of our larger offices like, let's see, Ebby, Remax, some of those guys, they'll have multiple different branch offices. And this little drop-down right here is really helpful to get to the right one. So this is going to have all of your agents in your office. Everybody is in here. Okay. And one thing that you can do is you can impersonate an agent. So let's say I'm going to keep picking on Maggie. Let me go find Maggie. I think she might be down here at the bottom. Here she is. Here's Miss Maggie York. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that little streetlight icon, and you'll see that I've got some options here. I can impersonate her, and this will allow you to view that agent's Instanet as if you are that agent, so as they see it. So for example, let me do that. Let me impersonate Maggie. Hopefully she doesn't get mad at me. Okay, it's loading up here. Okay, so now I'm looking at Maggie's agent dashboard. And I really like, they put this big kind of red bar at the top so that it reminds me that I'm impersonating another agent. So I know for sure that, there's something going on here. I'm not in my regular account. So why would you want to impersonate an agent? When would you use that? Well, let's say that one of your agents is out sick. Maybe they're having surgery. Maybe they're on vacation, or they're on, whenever you have a baby, it is pregnancy leave. Different things like that. Maybe they're out and they don't have access to Instanet for whatever reason. You can impersonate that agent, and then you can go in and help them out with things on their transaction. Maybe they need somebody to go in and send out a document or send something out to be signed. You can go in here, you can view their transactions. I can see all their stuff. So like if I go into transactions, this is going to be all of Maggie's transactions. And it's going to take just a second to load. There we go. So here's all of Maggie's transactions. And I can go here and I can take a look at any of her transactions, and I can go help out with things. So maybe we need to go into this one, and she has something that she needs to be sent out or signed. I can go in here to her forms and her documents, and I can help her out. And you can see up here with my red bar the entire time, it's kind of letting me know that I'm impersonating Maggie. So kind of lets you know there. Okay, so that is how Impersonate Agent works. Very, very easy to do. Whenever you're ready to stop impersonating them, you're going to click on this little hand right here, the little stop hand right there. And whenever you click on that, it's going to ask you, do you want to return to using Instanet as yourself? And you'll say yes. And there we go. And it takes me right back to my Instanet. Okay? So one thing that you might not know is that if I switch over to my broker view here, here's my broker dashboard. One of my little options here, if I click my lock, is to impersonate an agent. It's right here, little impersonate in green. So I can click and drag that out, and then I'll lock my dashboard again. So right here, impersonate agent, this is going to be a alphabetized list of all of my agents, and I can go in and I can impersonate anybody from right here on my dashboard. So if that's something that you know that you're going to want to do a lot, you can just add it right there, add that little widget there. So that's a nice little thing that you can use. Okay, so that was impersonate agent. Now let's go back and check out the rest of our broker tools. So that one was our agents. The next one that we have is reports. So I'll click on that. So reports, this is going to allow you to pull reports about transactions, tasks, things like that. This is a really easy way to see how many transactions an agent has done in a certain time period, for example. So for example, if I go to my reports and I say I want to pull a transaction report, and then it gives me all these little filters, so I can check the office that I want here. And let's say that I want to pull a report for, let's do WJ Miles. He's another one of our instructors. So I want to pull a report for that agent. And then I want to come down here to my last modified date. And let's say I want to see everything that he's done from January 1st of this year. So I'm going to type that in. Let's see if it'll let me here. 01/01/2022 until today's date. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to click on PDF. Okay, so it gives me a little report, and this should be, yep, so this is a transaction report for this agent. And here's all of the transactions that that agent has done. So I've got all the information here. These are all open. I can see closing date for one of them. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what you can pull there. And that's your reports. So you can pull that for transactions, for tasks, for call logs. That can be really useful if you've got an agent who's maybe running into a little bit of legal problems. Maybe they're getting sued or something like that. If they have put in call logs, you can pull a report for all of the call logs that they have for a transaction so that you have all of the communication that they've got going on. So that's your reports. And you know what? I will take a little step back. I did forget something under our agents, so I want to touch on that again. So we went over impersonate, but we didn't go over the other two. My bad. So your agent details, that is just going to give you your agent details. So your agent name, their office, and their information here. And then I also have that little impersonate button right there. So that's their agent details. And then we also have disable super user. So this would be turning off their super access. So for example, if you have maybe a manager that is going to be leaving and you want to turn off their super user access, you can disable that under agents. So that's something to think about. Okay, so that's everything under our agents and reports. We have just a few more to go. So under our office settings, this is a really good one, really important one. So let's go check out office settings. So our office settings, this is going to be preferences for your whole office. So under general, this would be things like, what are your agents allowed to do? Do you want all of your agents to use templates? Things like that. So for example, if you wanted to set up an office alias, so maybe you are, what's a good one? Maybe you are Remax Select Homes, and there's, a bunch of different letters and names and things after that. You could just come in here and say that your alias is Remax. Or like for us, we are MetroTex Association of Realtors. Maybe I just want to have it to be MetroTex as our office alias, whatever I want to do there. So I can enter that in. If you're curious, they do have a little what's this? And this will show you this alias is used to display the office name throughout the system for all users. So maybe you've got a bunch of different branch offices and you want to say, okay, we are the Coldwell Banker Dallas branch, or we are the one in Fort Worth. Whatever you want to do there. So that's a useful, nifty little tool. Allow agents to delete transactions. So this is going to default to yes. They are able to delete their own transactions if they would like to do so, but you can change this if you want. If you don't want them to be able to delete transactions, you can turn that off. Okay. Enable transaction transfer. So we saw this one a little bit earlier there, the transfer between agents. That's something that you can turn off. If you're not interested in that, then you can turn it off. Show vendors to participants. So the vendors to participants, this would be different vendors that are available here in Instanet, different companies that have paired with Instanet to have their home pages and things like that linked. If you don't want to show those, you can turn it off. Or if you are pairing with some of those different companies, you can say yes. Force agents to use templates. So I currently have it set to no, but if I set it to yes, that will force an agent to put a template on their transaction. And so you might want to use that if there is a form or a document that you really want to go in absolutely every transaction. You can say, yes, I do want my agents to have to use a template, and then you can create one that has those forms or documents that you want them to use. Okay, let's see what else we have. Only track mandatory items in the progress bar. So there's that little progress bar on your transactions that kind of tells you how close things are to being done. And you can say yes or no to that one. Let's see, require agents to assign documents to checklist items. So this would be they add a document in there, they have to add it as a checklist item to be done. So this is one thing that, again, you could either turn on or off. And then ask to provide a note. So remember when we were doing the review of those documents, and we can either accept or reject them? Well, in here, we can change it to say, I only want to add a note if I'm rejecting it. Or I can say, I want to add a note if I'm accepting or rejecting it. So you can go in and change those settings in here as well. Just make sure if you're doing any changes that you do click update to save those changes. So those are your kind of general options. We also have an option for summary email, and this would be that you can set up a summarized daily email, and that would be a reminder for any outstanding tasks. So if there is a transaction that has some tasks that need to be done, it will send out a reminder email automatically. Now that one can get a little bit annoying, I gotta say. It can get a little bit pesky, so you might want to be careful with that one, but just an option for you. And then we have our marketplace integration. So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier with the vendors. And this would be different companies that have paired with Instanet to have their home pages linked to Instanet. So for example, the first one is called Updater. Updater is a moving service, so they help with things like forwarding all of your mail to a new address. They have discount deals on moving companies, moving trucks, things like that. So that one is Updater. I've actually used that one whenever I moved to different apartments a long time ago, and it's actually a pretty good one. I like that. Then you've got Utility Concierge. And this one is kind of similar, but the Utility Concierge helps with setting up your utilities for a new home. So setting up the electricity, setting up the gas company, setting up your cable and internet and all of that kind of stuff here. That's what that one is for. Then we have the title integration. So this would be if you want to pick out a title company that you use, you can do that. So for example, if you want, you can turn that off. But if you do want to enable that title integration, then you can select a favorite title company that you guys like to use. So for example, I can come in here and I can select a favorite. And it's got a big long list of them in here, and I can search by them if I want to. And I can say, okay, I am a First American Title Company. That is one of my favorites. So I can pick that one out here. Oh, you know what? That one's in California, so maybe I don't want to pick that one out. Maybe I want to do one in Texas. But you guys get the idea. There's a bunch of different title companies that have paired with Instanet in here. You can scroll through all the options by using your little numbers down below. And you can go through all of the different title company integrations. Let's see, lots of ones in California for sure. California is such a busy, busy market. But you guys can see there's a bunch of them here. And if you want to search, there is a search by name or by address here. So you can search for those. And you can pick a favorite for your office. And then you can also pick a favorite title officer. So if there's somebody specific that you know you're always telling agents to go to, you can put them in here. So that's another nice little tool. I like that one. Enable home warranty integration. So this one would be to pick out a preferred home warranty company that you like to use. Very, very similar to the one we just saw. You either pick yes or no if you want that to be included. And then you can select a preferred vendor. So these are some home warranty companies that have paired with Instanet, and you can pick out one that you know is one of your favorites in here. And they do have a search by name up top as well. And you can scroll through all of them right here. Okay. And then the very last one here is enable property-based Go for all agents in your office. So property-based Go, that is a real estate customer relationship management tool, also known as a CRM. And this one is a way to offer real estate agents a framework for keeping track of leads, prospects, and clients, things like that. So if that's something you're interested in, you can check that out as well. So those are all just optional marketplace integrations. You don't have to use them, but they are in here if that's something that you want to pick out for your office. Okay, so that's all of your office settings. We just have a couple more to go in here. The next one is Authentisign templates. So let me open that one up. Okay, so here's our Authentisign templates. Well, you know what? I'm going to go back to home. Okay, so for your Authentisign templates, this is where you can set up signing templates. So where your agents need to initial, sign, do that kind of thing. So for example, if I open up the Texas Realtors Library, okay, here's all of the Texas Realtors forms, and I can search for a form. Let's do this guy. Let's do addendum for a seller's disclosure. This is seller's disclosure for a lead-based paint home. So let's click on that and let's say we want to create a new signing template. And it'll ask, are you sure you want to do that? And I'll say, yes, I am. There we go. Okay, and so here is that form. This is the addendum for seller's disclosure with lead-based paint. And this is just the blank form. Just if I was going to print it out blank, this is what it looks like. And what I can do is I can set up my own little signing templates in here. So I could say, okay, buyer 1, I know that they need to sign right over here, okay? And I also know that they need to do a date right over here, okay? And then I know that buyer 2, they need to sign right here. And they need a date right here. So you guys can kind of get the idea. All you have to do is pick out under your little eye, creepy little eye right there, you pick out who needs to sign everything. So let's say we need our seller to sign. And then all of these tools are going to belong to whoever's up top. So maybe I say, okay, I need my seller to sign right here. And I also need to pull out a date for them. So let me pull one of those out. And then we also have our seller 2. So they need to sign right here and they need to date. And then maybe we want to put our listing agents and our listing broker. So the listing broker, they need to sign right here. And then the selling broker needs to sign right here. So you guys kind of get the idea. You can go in here and set up a template for how everything needs to be signed. So that can be really helpful for you. And then you can save that. Okay, so changes are successfully saved. So now I've set that up as a signing template. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of there. And it's going to take it just a second. There we go. It's catching up with me, slowly yet surely. Okay, so that is your signing templates, your Authentisign templates under Broker Tools. Thankfully, Instanet already does most of that work for you. It's a pretty smart cookie, so if it recognizes that there's a buyer field, it's going to automatically put a buyer signature or a buyer initial on there for you. But you know, if you have something that you want to add some specific signatures on, you can do that under Authentisign templates. And then last but not least is our canned notes. And we did kind of previously take a look at this before, but this is just where you can add in any responses that you want to quickly use when you're doing those review of documents. So you can see I added a couple in here. Great job, this is approved to send. Missing signatures or initials, please revise. So you can add in any sort of notes so that whenever you're doing that review process, it's really, really fast for you. So for example, I might want to add another one. And this note, I might want to say, needs work, see Betty in the office for help. And I can save that. And there we go. It saves just a little kind of pre-made note for me. So that's just an idea of those canned notes for you. Okay, so that is all of your broker tools, all the things that you have access to do here in your broker tools. So the next thing that I want to walk through is creating a template. And so you can create a template just for yourself, or you can create one for the whole office. So that can be really nice if you know that you want your agents to use certain forms or documents whenever they're creating a new transaction. This can be a fantastic tool. So for that, we're going to go to our settings. So go to our little gear and go to our settings right here. And here's all of our different settings that we have. And we're going to go to the one that says transaction templates right here. Transaction templates. We're going to open that guy up. Okay, and so you'll see here that I already have quite a few because we teach this class a few times, so we have a few in here. But let's say that you don't have any and you want to create a new one. For that, you're going to come up here and you're going to click on your little add. And that little plus sign says create transaction template. So we're going to do that. Okay, and when I do that, I have the option to make that a personal template. So that would be only for me. Or I can make this an office-wide template so everybody has access to that. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, let's make an office-wide template. And then we have this little checkbox here, lock content from other super users. So what this one is telling me is that other super users have access to edit this template. They can go in here and change it. Now, if I lock it, if I check my little checkbox and I lock it, that is saying nobody else can edit this. Only I can edit this. And you might want to do that for some of them. You might want to set them up and then not let anybody else touch it. Or you might want to leave that open so that other people can go in and edit it. So it's really up to you. I'm just going to say that we're going to lock it for today. Then we need to give it a name. So you need to give that template some kind of name. So for an example, we might say that this is an offer or a purchase template for residential. And I'll put a 1 there because I think I already have one with that name. But you guys get the idea. So you could say anytime that my agents create an offer or they create a purchase for residential properties, I want them to use this template. Then we can pick out what type of template this is going to be. So mine's going to be residential sale. And then I can give it a description. So I can say, these are all the forms docs you will need for a new offer or purchase. And then I can save that. Okay, awesome. So here is our transaction template. So we have that it's for the whole office, only I can edit it. Here's the name, everything we just did. So that's all the details. And then all down here is all the things that I can add to that. So let's say that I want to make a checklist. And this checklist is going to be everything that my agents need to do whenever they are doing an offer. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create a checklist. Let's see, so they have checklist templates in here. And I think, so these are pre-made ones that you can do. So if you've created a checklist before, so for example, like I have one here, offer or purchase checklist, I can add that and it would add it to this template. Boom, right there. There is a new checklist, okay? Then contacts. So let's see, what would we do under contacts? Maybe for that one, we could add the selling broker because the selling broker is always going to be us, right? So we'll go ahead and add, and we can either add an existing contact or we can create a new one. So I could say I'm going to create a new contact, and that is going to be the selling broker. And then I could put in my name. So I could put in, my name is Rachel Hinson. I'm always going to be the selling broker. And my office is Metro Texas Association of Realtors. Maybe I can put in my email, like that. You guys get the idea. I could fill out my legal name, my preferred signature, just so that all of this stuff is already filled in here. So I could save that. Okay. Then we get into documents and folders. So let's do for this one, let's add a document or a folder. We've got two options in here. And let's add a folder. So let's say maybe I want all of their documents, to go into a folder that's called Office Docs. I can set up that little folder right here, okay? Or if I want it to be even more, plain and simple for them to figure out, I can say documents to be submitted to Office. Really spell it out for them, and I can save that. So now any of my agents that use this template they're going to automatically have a folder in there that says documents to be submitted to the office, and they can put them all in this folder to kind of keep them all in one place. Okay, I can also add a document. So if there is something specific that I want all my agents to be using whenever they're creating a transaction, maybe I have an information about our office or something like that, I can add that right here. Okay. And then lastly, we have forms. So this is where I can add any forms that I know that they're going to be a part of that buyer transaction. So for example, some of the ones that we saw earlier today, we added an IABS on the buyer side. We added a 1-to-4 family contract. We added a third-party financing. We can add all of those forms right here. So let's do that. Let's add forms. We've got access to all of our forms libraries. So for example, if I want to get information about brokerage services on the selling side or on the buyer side, I can add one of those, and I can add it. Boom, right there. That's automatically going to be in there, so my agents don't forget to get that signed. Maybe I want to add another one. Maybe I want to add that 1-to-4 family contract. Boom, right there, and I can add it. And that's now under my forms. So you guys get the idea. There are a lot of different things that you can do for this template, and you set it all up in here, and then that will go onto their transactions. Okay, so we'll do just a couple more things before we wrap up our class. So now we're going to go to our settings one more time, and I want to point out to you guys the checklist manager. So this is how you can create a checklist for your office. So you would use this if maybe there's a checklist of certain to-do items that you want your agents to do every single time, so they're not missing anything. I can go to Checklist Manager, and I can create a new checklist. So I'm going to do Add, and it wants me to give that a name and pick if it's personal or office. So let's say that this is an office checklist, and this is a purchase transaction checklist. Okay, we'll save that. And maybe I want to give that a description. Maybe I want to say to-do items for a purchase transaction. Don't skip any. Okay, so I can do that. And then I can add my checklist items here. So let's click our Add button. And let's say that there is a task that we want them to do, and it is mandatory, so they have to do that. And maybe that item is get IABS signed. We need to do that, right? We can't forget that. So we're going to click on that one. And then I can click on Task right here. And I can say that there is a due date. So currently it has no due date, but maybe I want to relate that to a transaction date. So I say I want to get that done before we submit an offer, so before the offer date. And I want to remind them, one day before with an email. You can do all that. Okay? Access. So here we can change the amount of access, so who can change this. We've got a review section, a task section. We can assign that to someone. So lots of options here, but you'll see it just comes up with a little kind of checklist item. Hey, make sure it's M for mandatory, that you get that IABS signed before you submit an offer. Okay? And then we can do another one. So maybe another thing that they're going to need to do whenever they are doing a purchase is maybe you want them to attend closing with buyers. Maybe you want them to attend that, okay? So that is a task. Maybe that one's not mandatory, but we want them to do that task. And we want them to do that after the, let's see, well, I don't want to do after the closing date. Let's do on the closing date. And then we can have them send a reminder. Okay, so there's an example of another one, and it kind of shows you. So that is your checklist manager, where you can create checklists. You could make those super broad, or you can make them as specific as you want them to be. And this is just kind of a way to help your agents and help yourself to not forget steps. So they've got a little to-do list, they've got everything in one spot, and they know exactly when they need to do those things as well. Okay, so we've gone over a lot today. We've gone over our broker tools. We've gone over some of our settings as well. We've gone over setting up a transaction. So now what I want to do to finish up our class is I want to create another transaction here in Instanet. And this time I want to apply that template, apply that checklist, and I just want to show you guys what that looks like for the agent. So this time, instead of starting in Matrix, I'm going to start here in Instanet. And I'm going to go to our transactions, so my little house here, my transactions, and I'm going to add a new one. So always, anytime you need to add anything, it's going to be your little plus sign. Okay, and we need to give it a name. So maybe I want to call this one 1234 Smiley Street. That's our transaction name. And my template, I want to choose that template that I just created, my offer or purchase template. And I can choose to import information either from Netris or from Realist Tax if I want to. Okay, and so maybe I want to do from Netris, or I'm sorry, from Realist Tax. So I want to import information from there. And so I need to select a county. Let's do, I'm going to do Tarrant County. Should be all the way at the bottom. Here we go, Tarrant County. And then I can enter a tax ID to import that data. Or there's a little tax search, and I can search a street number. So let's try this. 704 Beverly, search tax data. That's the one I want. So very easy to do. So it's going to import information from this little tax ID right here. We are going to do the add me as the selling agent, and we are going to use the wizard, and we're going to do create. Here we go, it's loading up. Okay, so we can see, again, we're going into another transaction. And here we've got all of our details. So our step one, all of this is filled in, but this time it's filled in from the tax record. So that's where it's getting all that information. I can click next. Our transaction dates are going to be a little bit bare this time because nothing's pulled over automatically, but I can add in different things here if I want to. Go over to our contacts. We've got our selling broker, and well, our selling broker is already added in here because I added that one earlier. It's added me as a selling agent. And then we've got our seller right here. So this is pulled over from the tax records. And then I can add in my buyer if I wanted to do that. I'm just going to skip over that one right now. And then forms. You'll see that now we have two forms in here. And the reason why we automatically have those forms in here is because we use that template. The template already had these guys set up in there. So that is fabulous. And then we've got our documents. Not a whole lot in here, just that fax back cover sheet, but it is in there for us. So now if we go out to our transaction dashboard, a lot of things are already set up for us. So it already has a couple of forms. It already has our contacts in there. And we've got our tasks set up to do. So we've got our schedule appraisal, schedule inspection, attend the closing, take earnest money to title. There's lots of stuff in here. And that's all coming over from your templates and your checklists. So that's a nice little tool for you. Okay. And so if I go over to my checklist, we'll see that we do have a checklist in here, and we have all of these different things here. So schedule an appraisal, schedule an inspection, attend the closing, submit offer to the list agent. All of these are different tasks that I have set up in my checklist that's part of that template. So that's a nice little tool there. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Okay, so we still have about 10 minutes left in our class. So I want to end up on our settings. So I'm going to go down to our settings, and we're going to take a look at just a couple more settings that we can play around with here in Instanet. The first one that I want to point out is notifications. So I click on that. This is going to be how you're notified and what you're notified for. So for example, do I want to be notified whenever I get those document review requests? Maybe you want to check that. Okay. Do I want to be notified whenever documents are accepted or rejected? Now that one would be more for the agents, but good to know. Do I want to know whenever a transaction changes from broker review? Different things like that. So I can save those. Tasks. So do you want to be notified whenever a task is past due? Do you want to know whenever there is, let's see here, different things like notify assigned members whenever they have a task that's coming up. Notify the owner whenever that status of that task has changed. So you can be notified for all of these things, or if this is just going to annoy the heck out of you, you can uncheck them. So either way. Teams and share. This is another notification setting. So you can you can be notified whenever a shared transaction is created or when a shared transaction is deleted. So a couple more things about be notified when those things happen. And then super users. So there is a lot of different things that you can be notified about with your super users. Again, remember that your super users, those are going to be your office managers, your office staff, your admins, things like that. And they're going to have a little bit higher access than your regular agents. So you might want to be notified whenever a super user deletes a document. Maybe you want to be notified whenever a super user changes a file to closed, file complete. You know what I'm saying? You might want to be notified whenever those things happen. So just a couple of things that you can be notified for there. And that's all under notifications. Okay, let's see. Another one that I want to point out to you guys is type management. And type management, this is where you can add a new type of contact. So for example, you have your agents, appraisers, brokers, buyers, things like that. But if there's another type of contact that you want to add in, you can come in here and create a new type of person. And you can do that for all of these. So you can create a new type of document, a new type of service order, a new type of transaction. Now, a lot of these are going to be very basic, and they're going to be, just kind of the general things that you need. So commercial lease, commercial listing, condo lease, condo listing, things like that. But maybe I want to create a new type, and I want to call it multifamily. Multifamily sale. Okay, so now I've got a new transaction type, which is a multifamily sale listing. Maybe I want to create another one, a multifamily listing transaction. So you guys get the idea. There are a lot of different things that you can add in here. Okay, so that's your type management. That one is right here. And then let's see, just a couple more here. We also have integrations. Now, integrations, this is going to be all of the companies that have paired with Instanet. So for example, Top Producer, that one is integrated with Instanet. So if you and your team uses Top Producer, you can enable that. We have moving services. So I know we talked about this earlier. Updater is one of them. Utility Concierge is another one of them. You can choose to enable those. Same with your title integration. So again, you can come in here and select your favorite title companies or different things like that. And then lastly, of course, is our home warranty integration. And we did choose a favorite on that one. So you guys can see that you can choose that as well. Okay, and then the very last one that I want to point out for you guys today, and then we'll call it a wrap, is our service providers. And service providers, this is where you can add in a service provider that you like working with. So maybe you like working with a specific title company and you can't find it in the other list. Or maybe you like working with a specific appraiser or whatever it might be. You can come in here and add a service provider. And you can say, okay, they're an appraiser, and their company name is ABC Appraiser Services, and their first name is Anthony, last name is Appraiser, and you can put their email address and things like that, and then you can add them. So you can see what that looks like. So you could add that for all kinds of different things. You could add an inspector, an attorney, a lender, title company. There's a lot of different things in there. So that gives you the option to add those in for you to use or for your agents to use. All right, well, I believe that that's all I've got for class today.